What truly makes a person unforgettable? Is it the sharp jawline, the designer clothes, or the curated selfies that fill up a screen? Or is there something deeper, something unspoken, felt rather than seen? The truth is, the most magnetic people you've ever met often don't fit the mold of conventional beauty. Yet, when they walk into a room, the air shifts. People lean in. Conversations pause. It's not because of their appearance. It's because of their presence. And that presence is not accidental. It's built, quietly, daily, through small, consistent habits that shape the way they see themselves, and in turn, how the world sees them. Attraction is not a game of genetics. It's a reflection of how you carry yourself, how you treat yourself, and how you make others feel in your presence. The world has sold a lie that being attractive means changing your body, your skin, your face. But deep down, you already know that's not true. You've seen people with every physical advantage, and yet they don't move anyone emotionally. And then there are those who glow without trying, those whose energy pulls you in, whose words stay with you, whose eyes hold stories. That kind of attraction doesn't fade. It doesn't need makeup or filters. It's real, and it's earned. Every day, you are becoming someone. Whether you're aware of it or not, your habits are shaping your identity. The way you speak to yourself in silence, the way you show up when no one is watching, the way you walk into a room without needing to be the loudest. These things matter more than you think. They send signals, subtle but powerful. They whisper to the world, this person values themselves. This person knows who they are. And that confidence, that quiet, grounded certainty, that's irresistible. The reason most people struggle with attraction is not because they lack something, but because they've buried something. They've buried their light under self-doubt, under the need for validation, under years of trying to please others while ignoring their own worth. But here's the breakthrough. You don't need to add anything fake to become more attractive. You just need to remove what's blocking your natural magnetism. You need to unlearn the belief that you're not enough. You need to stop waiting for permission to be seen, because no one will give you that permission. You have to claim it. And that's what this is about. Reclaiming the habits that align with your most powerful self. This isn't about tricks. It's about transformation, real change, deep change, the kind that doesn't just get you noticed, it gets you respected, the kind that doesn't just attract people, but draws in the right people, the ones who see you, not just your surface, the ones who admire your mind, your energy, your presence. There's a version of you that's already attractive, not because you've become someone new, but because you finally returned to who you were before the world told you who to be. And with every habit you adopt, with every mindset shift you make, that version gets closer. You start to walk differently, speak differently, think differently. You stop chasing and start becoming. And that, more than anything, changes everything. Imagine this, people feeling safe around you without knowing why. Strangers wanting to be in your energy, friends confiding in you, inspired by you, opportunities coming not because you forced them, but because you've become the kind of person who attracts them. That's not fantasy, that's psychology, that's presence, that's power. You are not here to impress the world, you are here to express the fullness of who you really are. You're not here to shrink, to be silent, to blend in. You're here to stand tall, not because you're louder, but because you're real, because you're disciplined, because your habits align with self-respect, clarity, and purpose. And people can feel that, even if they can't explain it. This isn't about changing yourself to fit in. It's about elevating yourself to stand out. It's about doing the inner work so your outer energy speaks before you say a word. And when you build these habits, something incredible happens. You stop chasing attraction, and you start radiating it. So stay with this journey, because by the end, you won't just learn how to be more attractive. You'll feel it in your bones. You'll carry yourself differently. You'll become someone that others can't help but notice. Not because you're pretending, but because you finally remembered who you are. The moment you begin to value yourself, everything around you begins to shift. People can feel it. Your energy becomes different. You no longer enter rooms seeking approval. You walk in carrying quiet assurance. And that assurance comes from one foundational habit, self-respect. Not the loud, prideful kind that tries to prove something. The silent, disciplined kind that refuses to settle for anything less than what aligns with your worth. When you learn to say no to what diminishes you, you begin to attract what elevates you. There is something undeniably attractive about a person who has boundaries. Not walls, not arrogance, but standards rooted in self-worth. When you can look at something or someone and say, that doesn't feel right for me, you send a powerful message to the world. You know who you are. Most people spend their lives betraying themselves just to be accepted. They say yes when everything inside them says no. They compromise their peace for approval. And over time, that internal conflict dims their presence. It steals their fire. But the ones who glow, the ones who walk with magnetism, they've made a different choice. They've chosen to honor themselves even when it's hard. They've chosen to walk away from relationships, environments, and habits that no longer align with their growth. And that choice, that quiet self-loyalty, it's rare. It's powerful. It's attractive beyond explanation. Respect doesn't begin with others. It begins with how you treat yourself when no one's watching, the way you speak to yourself in the mirror, the way you uphold your own values, the way you stay true to your word even when it's inconvenient. People don't fall for perfection, they fall for consistency, for integrity, for the kind of person who stands tall even when no one is clapping, because that kind of person isn't moved by trends or popularity. They're moved by purpose. And there's nothing more captivating than a person living from purpose. The world notices what you tolerate. If you let people disrespect your time, they will. If you ignore your own needs to make others comfortable, they'll keep expecting it. But when you start showing up for yourself, when you draw the line and protect your energy, everything begins to change. People begin to treat you differently, not because they suddenly became better, but because you became clearer. And clarity is strength. It doesn't need to yell. It simply is. You weren't born to be at everyone's mercy. You weren't born to play small so others don't feel insecure. You were born with a voice, a path, a presence that matters. And when you start acting like you matter, the world mirrors it back to you. That's not ego, that's alignment. That's the beginning of real attraction. Not just being seen, but being respected. There's a confidence that comes from knowing you won't break your own rules just to be liked. There's peace in not needing to chase or convince anyone of your value. The more you choose yourself, the more people are drawn to you, not because you're chasing them, but because your energy says, I am whole with or without you. That independence is rare. That emotional self-sufficiency is gold. It's what makes people lean in, wonder what you have, want to be around you, not for what you can give them, but for how they feel in your presence. This isn't about pushing people away. It's about inviting the right ones in. Those who recognize your value without needing to be convinced. And the only way to do that is by first recognizing your own, not in theory, in action, in how you show up for yourself, in how you protect your time, your peace, your energy. Because people will treat you based on the tone you set with yourself. If you constantly abandon yourself for others, they'll assume it's okay to do the same. But when you raise the standard internally, everything external rises to meet it, or it falls away. Either way, you win. It's not selfish to have boundaries. It's sacred. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't inspire others if you're constantly betraying yourself to fit their expectations. Your light doesn't require validation. It requires protection. And the more you protect it, the more it shines. You stop living reactively. You start living intentionally. You stop being available for everything. You start becoming unavailable to anything that compromises your growth. This is the shift. This is the point where the real attraction begins. Not the surface level kind, but the kind that's built on depth, strength, and clarity. Because in a world full of people trying to be liked, the one who truly respects themselves stands out like a flame in the dark. Not because they're loud, but because they're real. And real always rises. Always. When you no longer need to prove yourself, you begin to possess something few people have. Quiet power. The kind that doesn't need attention, but always gets it. That kind of power is built in the spaces where most people speak too quickly, move too fast, and try too hard. But the most magnetic individuals are those who understand the strength of restraint. They don't overshare. They don't chase approval. They observe, they listen, and they stay rooted in their own energy. While the world rushes to be noticed, they remain still, and that stillness draws people in like gravity. There is something deeply attractive about someone who doesn't force their presence. Someone who can sit in silence without discomfort, who doesn't need to be the loudest voice in the room to be the most influential. It's because they know something others don't. They've stopped tying their worth to noise. They've chosen depth over display. And in doing so, they've tapped into one of the most powerful forms of attraction, self-control. When you speak less, you give more weight to your words. People lean in because you're not trying to dominate the moment. You're trying to understand it. You're not seeking to be right. You're seeking to connect. And that subtle difference makes all the difference. It shows wisdom. It shows confidence. It shows that you're not afraid of space, of silence, of not being the center, because you've already found your center within yourself. In a world addicted to instant reactions, the ability to pause is rare. To breathe before you respond, to think before you act. That level of discipline tells people they're dealing with someone who is not reactive but reflective. Someone who chooses their words with intention, not emotion. And that kind of presence is unforgettable. Because it feels safe, it feels mature, it feels powerful. You don't have to speak to be heard. Your energy speaks before you do. It speaks in how you carry yourself, in the way you listen with your eyes, in the way you remain calm when others get loud. That calmness isn't weakness, it's strength under control. Anyone can raise their voice, but it takes real inner power to lower it. To say less and let your actions, your decisions, your energy do the talking. Most people listen to reply, but the truly magnetic ones listen to understand. They're not waiting for their turn to speak. They're absorbing. They're present. And presence is rare. That's why people feel so drawn to those who have it. Because it's not about saying something clever. It's about making others feel seen. And people always remember how you made them feel, long after they forget what you said. The ones who captivate aren't the ones with the loudest stories. They're the ones who make others feel important, who hold space for others without judgment, who don't dominate but elevate. And to do that, you must learn to quiet the noise within you. The need to prove, to win, to be liked. You must learn to be still in your own skin, to be okay with silence. Because in that silence, people will lean in. They will feel your depth. They will sense your strength. There's a certain glow that comes from someone who listens more than they speak, who doesn't rush to fill every gap with their voice, who lets others reveal themselves while they remain grounded. That glow isn't something you can fake. It's the product of internal peace, of knowing who you are so deeply that you don't need constant reinforcement. That kind of energy is powerful. It makes people wonder about you, think about you, want to know more. This is where real attraction is born, in restraint, in intention, in the ability to be present without needing to perform, in choosing connection over performance. It's not about being mysterious just to be mysterious. It's about being secure enough to not overshare your soul with those who haven't earned it. Not everyone deserves full access to you. And the moment you realize that, you become rare. You become valuable. You become someone who is not easily forgotten. You don't need to rush to be understood. You don't need to shout to be seen. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be there, unmoved, calm, attentive, fully grounded in your own energy. Because in a world that's always shouting, the one who whispers truth speaks loudest. And the one who can be silent without fear, without discomfort, without needing to fill the air with noise, that person commands the room without trying. So let others race to be heard. You, stay steady, stay silent when it serves you. Speak only when it matters. Watch how people begin to notice you differently. Not for how much you say, but for how much you seem to know. Not for how loudly you speak, but for how deeply you listen. Because the most attractive presence is not loud, it's felt. And when you learn to control your energy, rather than throw it in every direction, you become undeniable. There's a reason why some people are instantly trusted, even by strangers. It's not because of charm or cleverness, it's presence. It's the rare ability to make someone feel seen, not scanned, heard, not handled, understood, not judged. And that kind of presence isn't found in the words you say, it's found in how you listen. The deepest form of attraction begins when you stop trying to impress and start learning how to connect. Because when someone feels your attention fully, when they feel you're not just hearing them but truly receiving them, it triggers something ancient and powerful. It triggers trust. It triggers safety. It triggers loyalty. Most people walk through life barely listening. They're too distracted, too preoccupied, too busy forming their next sentence to truly hear the one that was just spoken. But those who master the habit of deep listening carry a kind of magic with them, a kind of warmth that lingers. They become rare, desired, magnetic, because in a world full of people starving for real connection, the one who knows how to give it becomes irresistible. When you learn to listen with your whole presence, with your eyes, your body language, your stillness, you're not just gathering information. You're communicating something much bigger. You're saying you matter here. I see you. I'm with you. And people crave that more than anything, more than attention, more than compliments, more than validation. They crave to feel felt. And when you offer that, you become unforgettable. This is where surface-level attraction falls apart, because looks fade, achievements blur. But the way someone makes you feel, that stays. That's why people are drawn to those who know how to be fully present in a moment. It's not about saying the perfect thing, it's about giving the person in front of you your full awareness, not checking your phone, not rushing to fix them, not drifting into your own thoughts, just being there, solid, available, human. Presence doesn't just make others feel seen, it sharpens you. It wakes you up to the power of every interaction. It teaches you how to hold space instead of fill it. And in that space, something powerful grows. Trust. The kind of trust that makes people open up, that makes them share things they didn't expect to share, that makes them want to be better just because you were with them. You can't fake presence. You can't pretend to care. People can feel it. They know when you're just waiting for your turn to speak. They know when you're mentally somewhere else. But when you're fully with them, without judgment, without agenda, it's unforgettable. And the truth is, very few people offer that. That's why those who do become deeply attractive. Because they're not offering attention for attention's sake. They're offering understanding. And understanding is power. When you listen long enough, people reveal who they really are. They show you their fears, their wounds, their dreams, not because you pried, but because you stayed. Because you didn't rush in to talk about yourself. Because you didn't try to be impressive. You tried to be real. That realness is what people crave. It makes them feel safe. It makes them feel like they can finally drop the mask, even if just for a moment. We live in a noisy world, a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, but no one is truly listening. If you can be the one who listens, not just with your ears, but with your heart, you rise above the noise. You become the calm in the chaos, the depth in a shallow room, and people will be drawn to you, not because of what you say, but because of how you make them feel when you say nothing at all. This is not just about attracting others. This is about becoming someone you're proud of, someone who leads with empathy, not ego, someone who builds real connection instead of superficial conversation. When you listen to someone deeply, you offer them healing. And that kind of healing is unforgettable. It becomes the reason people remember you, the reason they seek you out, the reason they feel better simply being around you. You don't need to dominate every conversation to leave a mark. You just need to be present, to care more than most, to ask questions that matter, to pause before you reply, to look someone in the eye and make them feel like they're the only person in the world in that moment. That's the kind of presence that builds trust, that earns respect. That creates a gravitational pull stronger than looks, money, or charm ever could. If you want to be truly attractive, stop trying to be interesting. Start being interested. That's where your power is. Not in the performance, but in the presence. Not in the spotlight, but in the stillness. Because the most magnetic energy is not loud. It's grounded, it's patient, it's rare. And when you become someone who listens with intention and lives with awareness, you don't just change how others see you. You change how they see themselves when they're around you. And that is the highest form of influence. When you stop outsourcing responsibility for your life, something changes in the way people see you. And more importantly, in the way you see yourself. There is nothing more attractive than a person who owns their choices. Not just the glamorous ones. All of them. The easy and the hard. The mistakes, the setbacks, the growth. Because when you take responsibility, you shift from victim to creator. From passive to powerful. And that shift radiates confidence in every direction. Most people live reactively, blaming traffic for their anger, blaming circumstances for their stagnation, blaming people for their unhappiness. But you weren't born to be at the mercy of what happens to you. You were born to lead yourself through it, to stop pointing fingers outward and start looking inward. Because the truth is, no one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you peace, self-worth, or success. That's your job, and the moment you accept that, it changes everything. People are drawn to those who take control of their own lives. Not in a controlling way, but in a grounded, disciplined way. It's magnetic because it's rare. Most people are waiting for a break, for luck, for someone to rescue them. But when you become the kind of person who creates momentum, who rises no matter what, who refuses to stay down, it shows. It shows in your posture, in your tone, in your eyes, in the energy you carry. You stop being needy. You start being necessary. Ownership builds a different kind of confidence. Not the surface kind built on compliments or followers, but the real kind, built on effort, resilience, and consistency. When you know you've earned every inch of your progress, you walk differently. You no longer need validation, because your results speak for themselves. You no longer need to be loud, because your energy does the talking. That's what people feel. That's what they admire. That's what they remember. The most attractive people are those who've been through fire, but never used it as an excuse to become bitter. Instead, they used it as fuel to become better. They didn't let pain make them small. They let it make them sharp. And that edge, that internal strength, that self-accountability, it makes them unforgettable. Because it's a quiet signal to the world, you can't shake me. I know who I am. I know what I've built. Excuses are cheap. Everyone has them. But responsibility? That's elite. That's rare. That's what separates those who drift from those who dominate. Because when you take ownership, you stop waiting for the right conditions. You start creating them. You stop hoping for opportunity. You start preparing for it. You stop explaining why it's hard and start showing why it's possible. That energy is contagious. And people want to be around it. Because deep down, everyone wants to feel powerful. And when they see you owning your life, they see what's possible for themselves. Responsibility is not about perfection. It's not about having it all figured out. It's about having the courage to say, this is mine to fix. This is mine to change. This is mine to grow from. That courage is rare, and it speaks louder than any words ever could, because it tells the world you're not afraid to face yourself. You're not afraid to admit where you've fallen, and you're even less afraid to rise again. There's something deeply human and deeply powerful about someone who holds themselves to a higher standard, not for attention, but for alignment. Someone who doesn't let their emotions dictate their discipline. Someone who gets up early, trains when they don't feel like it, studies when no one's watching, builds when no one claps. That's where real confidence is born. And confidence is the most attractive quality a person can carry. Not because it's loud, but because it's rooted. The more responsibility you take, the freer you become. Because you stop waiting. You stop needing. You start creating. And the people who build their own peace, who create their own path, who show up for themselves day after day, they're unstoppable. You feel it when they walk into a room. You sense it in the way they speak. They're not trying to prove anything. They're just living on purpose. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You just have to take ownership of your time, your choices, your habits, your attitude, because the world responds not to what you say you want, but to what you consistently show up for. And when you become someone who shows up no matter what, people can't help but take notice, because there's no needier energy than blame, and no more powerful energy than responsibility. So if you want to be more attractive, start here. Start with yourself. Start with the truth. Start with what's in your control. Let others wait for permission. You, give it to yourself. Let others seek approval. You, approve of your own growth. Because once you stop waiting, you start winning. And there's nothing more magnetic than someone who leads themselves with courage, with conviction, and with complete accountability for who they are becoming. There's a certain kind of energy that enters the room before you do. It's not in your words. It's not in your looks. It's in how you carry yourself. And that kind of energy is forged in the moments no one sees. When you choose to take care of your mind, your body, your peace. Because the way you treat yourself is the blueprint for how the world will treat you. If you carry yourself like someone who matters, you begin to draw in people, opportunities, and experiences that reflect that belief. Attraction begins with how you feel in your own skin. And that feeling is earned, not inherited. Taking care of yourself isn't just about fitness. It's about respect. It's about discipline. It's about sending a clear message to yourself and to the world. I am worth the effort. When you move your body, when you fuel it with intention, when you sleep like your dreams depend on it, because they do, you begin to shift. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That shift becomes visible in the way you stand, the way you breathe, the way your eyes meet the world. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because you're aligned. You stop needing external validation because your habits are already validating you every single day. Every drop of sweat, every choice to say no to what drains you, every time you show up when it's easier to quit, that's where confidence is born. Confidence doesn't come from compliments. It comes from consistency. And that kind of consistency creates a presence that doesn't need to speak to be heard. You can't fake the energy of someone who shows up for themselves. It lives in their posture, in the stillness behind their eyes, in the quiet fire of their actions. It's what draws others in, not because they're impressed, but because they're inspired. Because deep down, we all want to be around people who remind us what we're capable of. And there's nothing more powerful than a person who becomes their own source of strength. Your health is not separate from your confidence. It's the foundation. When you take care of your body, your mind follows. Your focus sharpens. Your mood lifts. Your resilience increases. And the world notices, even if it doesn't know why. You begin to show up more grounded, more aware, more present. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And strength is always attractive. Not just the kind you can see, but the kind you can feel. When you neglect yourself, it shows. It shows in your energy, your tone, your tolerance. But when you invest in yourself, when you treat yourself like someone you're responsible for protecting, everything changes. You stop letting people mistreat you. You stop accepting chaos. You stop allowing environments that poison your peace. Because now you know your value, not in theory, but in practice. And that value is reinforced every time you make a choice that aligns with your highest self. People are drawn to those who operate from self-respect, not ego. Not vanity, but a deep, grounded love for themselves that doesn't need to be loud to be real. That's what sets you apart. Not because you have something to prove, but because you're living in a state of alignment. You know what you stand for. You know what you allow. You know what you're building. That kind of clarity has gravity. It's felt without being forced. Self-care is not just what you do, it's who you become. You become someone who no longer tolerates excuses. Someone who prioritizes growth over comfort. Someone who understands that rest isn't weakness and movement isn't punishment. It's a gift. A way of honoring the life you've been given. A way of saying, I'm not here to survive, I'm here to thrive. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to be committed. Committed to showing up, to keeping promises to yourself, to becoming just a little stronger, a little clearer, a little more disciplined every day. Because those small acts compound. They build something inside you that can't be bought, taught, or faked. They build unshakable self-trust. And when you trust yourself, you walk differently. You don't chase energy, you create it. You don't look for confidence, you live it. Attraction isn't found in how you look. It's found in how you live. And when you live with intention, when your habits reflect your values, when your energy reflects your effort, people feel it. You become the kind of person others want to follow, want to know, want to become. Not because of your results, but because of your radiance. Because you've done the work. Because you keep doing the work. So move your body. Feed your mind. Guard your peace. Show up when it's hard. Take rest when it's needed. This is how you rise, not once, but repeatedly. And that rising, that fire, that self-respect, it speaks louder than words ever could. It tells the world, I value me. And you should too. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. And that's the energy that makes you truly, undeniably attractive. There is a rare kind of glow that comes from someone who is deeply focused on their purpose, not distracted, not scattered, not constantly pulled in 100 directions trying to impress the world, but locked in on something bigger than themselves. That glow is unmistakable. You feel it when they speak. You sense it in their movements. You see it in their discipline. It's not something they perform. It's something they embody. And that embodiment is what makes them magnetic. Because in a world full of noise, someone with a clear direction stands out without saying a word. Purpose changes the way you move through life. It gives your energy a current. It sharpens your voice. It shifts your presence from passive to powerful. When you're chasing something meaningful, you stop chasing people. You stop needing approval. You stop wasting energy trying to be liked by everyone. Because now, you're driven by something real. And that reality builds an aura no one can replicate. It's the energy of someone who knows exactly where they're going and isn't afraid to walk alone if they have to. People are drawn to clarity. They are drawn to conviction, not just in words, but in lifestyle. You don't have to explain your mission when your habits make it obvious. The early mornings, the long hours, the sacrifices, the boundaries, they speak for you. And the louder you live your purpose, the less you need to seek permission. That's what makes you attractive. Not because you're louder than everyone else, but because you're more aligned. You're not trying to be everything to everyone. You're becoming exactly who you were designed to be. Discipline creates freedom. It strips away what doesn't matter. It quiets the distractions. It clears the fog. And when you live with discipline, you begin to carry a different kind of presence. One that doesn't rely on gimmicks or appearances. One that radiates from within. Because discipline shows you that you don't need to feel like it. You just need to honor your path. That kind of commitment becomes a message. It says, I'm not here to play small. I'm here to fulfill something greater. Most people wander through life waiting to feel inspired. But the most magnetic individuals are the ones who keep moving even when the fire goes out. They show up when it's cold, when it's silent, when no one claps. They don't need motivation to be consistent. They understand that purpose isn't a mood, it's a mission. And when you live from that place, you don't just earn respect, you earn gravity. People begin to orbit around you not because you ask them to, but because your energy leaves no room for doubt. Attraction isn't about being liked by many, it's about being respected by the right ones. And the right ones are always drawn to purpose. Because purpose speaks to something deep in the human soul. It whispers of direction, of destiny, of depth. It tells others that you're not lost in the noise. You've carved your path through it. And that path, that commitment, that internal compass, it makes you magnetic without trying. When you live for purpose, everything else falls into place. Your words carry more weight. Your silence becomes more powerful. Your presence becomes a mirror, reflecting what others long to find within themselves. Not because you have it all figured out, but because you're walking with intention. You're not chasing trends. You're not mimicking others. You're rooted. You're centered. You're building something that doesn't need to be seen to be real. There's a reason people follow those with vision. Because vision lifts. It inspires. It creates a standard. And when you become the person who lives by that standard, people take notice. You stop needing to sell yourself. You stop needing to explain why you're valuable. Your actions do it for you. Your focus does it for you. Your alignment does it for you. That's what turns presence into power. Not how much attention you seek, but how little you need. It's easy to be everywhere and be nothing, but it takes courage to go deep in one direction, to say no to distractions, to choose mastery over popularity, to build a life that may not be loud, but is undeniably real. That depth, that focus, that groundedness, it attracts people who are tired of the superficial, people who crave authenticity, people who want to grow beside someone who's not afraid to walk their truth. You don't need to chase admiration when you're anchored in purpose. You don't need to compete when you're committed to your lane. You don't need to convince when you're consistent in your discipline. Just live it. Just embody it. And everything that's meant for you will be drawn to the energy you've cultivated through patience, persistence, and pure intention. Because in the end, purpose is more than a goal. It's a signal. And when you broadcast it through how you live, who you are, and what you stand for, you become impossible to ignore. Not because you shouted, but because you walked forward when others waited. And that kind of energy never goes unnoticed. When your life begins to revolve around purpose, another powerful shift takes place. You stop seeking attention and you start commanding respect. Not through force, but through presence. Not through noise, but through alignment. This is when humility becomes your greatest strength. Because the most truly attractive people aren't the loudest in the room. They're the most grounded. They don't need to tell you who they are. You feel it. You sense it. You trust it. And that kind of trust doesn't come from perfection. It comes from authenticity. Humility isn't weakness. It's control. It's knowing your worth so deeply that you don't need to prove it. It's strength without the mask. Power without the performance. It's the quiet confidence that walks into a room and doesn't need to dominate because it's already defined itself internally. That energy creates instant connection. It removes ego from the equation and makes space for something deeper: respect, admiration, loyalty. People confuse humility with shrinking, but humility is not about making yourself small. It's about refusing to make yourself bigger than others to feel important. It's about knowing your value and never needing to shout it. That subtle energy changes everything. It invites others in instead of pushing them away. It creates safety, not competition. And that safety is where attraction lives. Real, lasting, deep attraction. When someone can be strong and still kind, confident and still curious, wise and still willing to learn, that duality is magnetic. Because it shows maturity. It shows depth. It shows a level of self-awareness most people never reach. And the moment you reach it, you stop living to impress. You start living to impact. You stop worrying about applause and start focusing on alignment. And that alignment draws people to you in ways you never have to force. You don't need to talk about your success when your energy carries your story. You don't need to list your achievements when your presence reflects your discipline. You don't need to show off when your humility speaks louder than your ego ever could. That's the paradox of real attraction. The less you need to be seen, the more people see you. Because now they're not seeing your performance, they're seeing your peace. Humility allows space for growth. It means you're not afraid to be a student. Not afraid to ask questions, not afraid to admit when you don't know something. That kind of openness is powerful because it creates trust. It tells people that you're real, not rehearsed, that you're evolving, not pretending. And in a world of curated images and constant performance, someone who's real is rare, and rare is irresistible. Attraction built on ego is always unstable. It depends on validation. It needs constant applause. It cracks the moment it's questioned. But attraction built on humility, that's unshakable. Because it's not built on being better than others. It's built on being better than who you were yesterday. That inward focus, that daily evolution, that's what sets you apart. Not just in how others see you, but in how they feel around you. Calm, safe, inspired. When you carry humility, your words become more powerful because you're not using them to dominate, you're using them to elevate. You don't speak to impress, you speak to connect, to encourage, to lift. And people remember that. They may not recall every word, but they will remember how your words made them feel. Heard, understood, valued. That's what leaves a mark. That's what creates emotional gravity. You stop trying to be perfect. You start striving to be present because perfection creates distance, but presence creates connection. And when you show up as you are, unpolished but real, others feel permission to do the same. That's the beauty of humility. It doesn't lower the standard, it raises the room. It creates a space where authenticity thrives. And in that space, real relationships begin. Let others chase recognition. Let them fight to be seen. You stay rooted. Let your actions speak. Let your energy introduce you before your